Welcome back, mathematicians. We're starting a new chapter on exponents, chapter 3. It is found on page 26 of your textbook and page 30 of the workbook. Well, what are exponents? When we see numbers written like that, we are talking about exponents. The 2 is the base. The 5 is the exponent. And these two together are known as the power. When we do laws of the exponents, it's important that you know which is the base, which is the exponent, and what it means. It means that 2 is multiplied by itself 5 times, and the value is 32. 2 multiplied by 2 is 4, 2's are 8, 2's are 16, 2's are 32. Let's look at squares and cubes, square roots and cube roots. So first we look at the square numbers. The first square number is 1 because 1 by 1 is 1. So I have 1 along the bottom, 1 along that side. So I have got a block that is 1 by 1. 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter, or 1 meter by 1 meter. The next square number, well, the next natural number is 2. So the next square number is 2 by 2, which is 4. 2 blocks along, 2 blocks up. Altogether, I have 4 blocks. I'm taking 2 and multiplying it by itself twice, and my answer will be 4. The next square number, I'm taking 3 blocks along, 3 blocks up, and I will have 3 by 3 is 9. So the third square number is 3 squared, which is equal to 9. The fourth square number, 4, 4 blocks along, 4 blocks up. So 4 by 4 is 16, and it is written as 4 squared. You are expected to learn the following table. You are expected to know the square numbers up to 13 squared. So please make sure that you study this and you know these out your head, just like you know the multiplication tables. Right, let's look at the cube numbers. The first cube number is 1. And why do we have that? Well, this time I have 1 along, 1 to the back, and 1 up, so it is 3-dimensional. 1 by 1 by 1 is 1 cubed, which equals 1. The next cube number, I'm going to take 2 blocks along, 2 blocks wide, 2 blocks high. So my next cube number is 2 by 2 by 2. I have got 3 2's multiplied together, so it's 2 cubed, and that would be 8. The third cube number, 3 blocks along, 3 blocks wide, 3 blocks up. So if I had to count all the blocks in this cube, I would have 27, because I've got 3 by 3 by 3, which is 27. The fourth cube number is 4 cubed, which is 4 times 4 times 4, written as 4 cubed. The 3 tells you how many times to multiply 4 by itself. 1, 2, 3. 4 4's are 16, 4's are 64. You are also expected to know these cube numbers off by heart. There are certain things in maths that you have to learn, and you can't just reason them out. So the square numbers, you have to know up to 13. The cube numbers, you have to know up to the cube of 7. You must recognize them, and you must know the answers. Right, now we need to go and recap some of the things we've already dealt with in the previous chapters. First of all, any number to the power of 1 will be that number. So 25 to the power of 1 is 25. So what we are saying here is, if I have the number 6, I have an invisible power of 1. 6 is written as 6 to the power of 1 when we're doing exponents, because you're going to need that. The next thing to remember, any number to the power of 0 is 1. So even if I have a, b over c square rooted multiplied by 3, if it's to the 0, my answer is going to be 1. So no matter what you have inside the bracket, if it's raised to the power 0, your answer is 1. The next thing we have to remember, a positive number to an even exponent is a positive answer. A positive number to an odd exponent is a positive number. Why is that? Because you start off with positive, and it doesn't matter how many positives you multiply together, your answer will be positive. A negative number to an even exponent will give a positive answer, because remember, two negatives multiplied together will give you a positive. So if I have an even number of negatives multiplied together, I can group them into groups of 2 without having an odd one out, so your result is positive. If I have a negative number to an odd exponent, my answer is going to be negative, because once again, if I group them in 2s, two negatives multiplied together will give a positive, but once I've grouped them in 2s, if I have an odd number of values, I'm going to have a spare negative, so my answer is going to be negative. Square and cube roots. The inverse operation of squaring is square rooting. We've already dealt with the inverse operation of addition. The inverse operation of addition is subtraction. The inverse operation of multiplication is division. The inverse of division would be multiplication. The inverse of subtraction would be addition. So the inverse operation of squaring is square rooting. Well, we looked at the number 2 squared, which means 2 multiplied by 2, which will give you 4. So when we look at the square root, I gave you 4 blocks put together like that. The square root is actually determining the length of one side. So either that side or that side, and that would give you the square root. So the square root of 4 is 2. Very important that you remember, the square root of a negative number is non-real. Not undefined or error message, non-real. You have to learn that. The inverse operation of cubing is cube rooting, because if you had 3 multiplied by 3 multiplied by 3, it is 27. So if I gave you 27 blocks and asked you to make a perfect cube, that is the shape you would have, and you would have 3 blocks on the one side, 3 blocks on the other side, and 3 blocks high. That is a perfect cube. A negative number, cube rooted, is negative. So we can find the cube root of a negative number. Now the reason for this is because I cannot find the square root of negative 4. It is not negative 2, because negative 2 multiplied by negative 2 will give you positive 4, not negative 4. The cube root of a negative number, so for example, if I asked you to find the cube root of negative 8, you would have negative 2 multiplied by negative 2 multiplied by negative 2. So the cube root of negative 8, remember, cube root of negative 8 would be negative 2. Let's look at the worked example. We are now going to use the skills from the previous chapter. where we prime factorize numbers, and we prime factorize numbers in order to find the cube root or the square root of any number that is a square or a cube number. So if we have a look at this, we are finding the square root of 784. So I must group my factors into groups of 2. If I had the cube root of a number, I would then group my numbers into groups of 3. Right, so now we're going to make use of the ladder method. Remember your divisibility rules. You should go and learn them, and it'll make life much easier for yourself. This is an even number, so I know 2 is the prime number that'll divide into 784. 2 goes into 7, 3 2s are 6, remainder 1. 2 into 18 goes 9, 2 into 4 goes twice. I've ended on an even number, so I'm finding 2 as a factor of that will be 2 goes into 3 ones. 1 times 2 is 2, remainder 1. 9 2s are 18, remainder 1. 2 into 12 goes 6. Still an even number, so I'm going to divide 196 by 2. 2 can't go into 1. 2 into 19, 9 2s are 18, remainder 1. 2 into 16 goes 8. Still an even number. 2 into 9, 4 2s are 8, and 1 is 9. 2 into 18 goes 9. It is no longer an even number. If I use my divisibility rule of 3, 9 and 4 is 13. 3 can't go into 13, but at this stage you should recognize that that is a square number, and it is 7 squared. So I divide 7 into 49, which goes 7 times. 7 goes into 7 once. Remember, when doing the ladder method, your answer always at the end is 1, and these all have to be prime factors. In other words, those are all prime numbers. It is important to know that if I'm grouping in groups of 2s, I'm going to find the correct number of groups. So in other words, I've got 2 2s there. I group in groups of 2s. If you are unable to pair your numbers up when finding the square root, you know you've made a mistake. If you're asked to calculate a square root, then these factors will group into groups of 2s. So to find my square root, I'm going to take 1 2 out of that group. I'm going to take 1 2 out of that group. I'm going to take 1 7 out of that group, and my answer will be 2 times 2 is 4, 7s are 28. So the square root of 784 is 28. Now we need to write this formally in mathematics. So we will ask to find the square root of 784. I list my factors first. So I've got 2 2s, so 2 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 7 multiplied by 7. I've just rewritten that 784 is a product of its prime numbers. Now I'm going to find the square root. So I'm going to take those two grouped together, those two grouped together, those two grouped together, and I'm taking 1 from each of those groups. And because I've found the square root, I no longer need that sign. So I'm going to have 2 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 7. And because I've taken 1 from each group of 2, my square root sign disappears, and my answer is 28. Sometimes you're asked to write this in the form of its exponential form. So I have 2 2s multiplied together, multiplied by 7. Go and test your understanding of these concepts by completing this little test. Thank you. That's all for today.